I never thought I'd share my family's drama online, but I need to get this weight off my chest. 2 years ago, my father died in a motorcycle accident just 3 miles from our house, on that treacherous curve near the old gas station. 1 minute he was alive. The next, I was receiving a 2 a.m. call that shattered my world. My name is Alex, and I'm 23. Dad wasn't perfect, but he genuinely cared. He'd skip overtime to attend my architectural modeling competitions, even when exhausted from 12-hour shifts at his construction company. Though he rarely understood the technical aspects of my projects, he'd sit in my room, nodding along and asking questions. Our weekend ritual was working on his vintage Camaro in the garage. He'd blast 80s metal while sharing wild stories from his youth. I remember him changing the oil once, laughing about nearly getting arrested for street racing at 17. Mom would appear with beers, just one for me. Dad was strict about that, and those moments became the cornerstone of my memories. Before the accident, we were a typical family. My parents had their share of arguments after 20-plus years of marriage, but they balanced each other well. Dad approached problems with logic and patience, while Mom could go from calm to explosive in seconds. Together, they made our house feel like home, not somewhere to escape from. Everything imploded after Dad's death. Mom developed an unhealthy dependence on my younger sister Sophie, who's 20. They formed this disturbing, codependent relationship that pushed me to the margins. I became the household's responsible adult, but had zero say in decisions. Sophie was always the family's dramatic one, even before Dad passed. While I spent hours quietly working on design sketches and architectural models, she lived for social media attention, posting countless selfies and demanding constant validation. Dad used to temper Mom's tendency to indulge Sophie's every whim, but his death left no voice of reason. My little brother Nathan, 11, remains the family's sole voice of sanity. He's brilliant, loves chess and building complex Lego structures, and reminds me so much of Dad, thoughtful, quiet, analytical. He's been my anchor through these turbulent 2 years, the one person who helps me maintain perspective when everything else feels chaotic. Mom and Sophie's dynamic has grown increasingly toxic. Every minor issue in Sophie's life becomes a family crisis. When she didn't get into her preferred college, Mom spent weeks harassing the admissions office and considered a second mortgage to make a donation. Meanwhile, I've shouldered the real responsibilities, graduating with honors in architectural design, working part-time at a local drafting firm to help with bills, and essentially becoming Nathan's surrogate parent. Dad's life insurance should have provided financial stability, but the money vanished suspiciously fast. Mom claimed it went to necessities, but Sophie's constant parade of designer clothes and latest gadgets told a different story. I kept quiet, focused on my studies, and remembered Dad's wisdom that education was the one thing nobody could take away. Sophie's manipulation grows more sophisticated daily. She weaponizes anxiety whenever faced with responsibility, too anxious for a part-time job or morning classes, yet perfectly capable of partying until dawn. Mom enables this behavior completely, always ready with Sophie's sensitive, she needs support. Meanwhile, my exhaustion from juggling 30-hour work weeks with full-time studies gets dismissed as being unsupportive. The family has fractured into clear camps, Mom and Sophie versus Nathan and me, with manipulation and guilt as constant undercurrents. I've tried maintaining peace, but watching my father's legacy dissolve while my sister exploits our mother's grief has created a powder keg ready to explode. Since graduating with my architectural design degree, I'd plastered my bedroom wall with rejection emails from firms across the country. Some might find that depressing, but each fueled my determination. Dad's voice echoed in my memory. He'd applied to 17 construction companies before landing his first job. His persistence became my blueprint. Then came the call that changed everything. One of the world's premier architectural firms, I wish I could name them, but let's just say they've designed buildings you'd recognize in any major city. Skyline wanted to interview me. I almost dismissed it as a prank. Why would they consider a state university graduate when they could cherry pick from prestigious design schools? But they'd seen my regional competition winning final project, and one of their senior partners had been a judge. The interview process tested every ounce of my resolve. 4 grueling rounds over 3 weeks, design challenges, portfolio reviews, and a 2-hour panel where 5 partners dissected every aspect of my work. I prepared obsessively, surviving on coffee and determination, often working until 3 a.m. researching the firm's history and projects. All while maintaining my part-time job, helping Nathan with his science fair project, and deflecting Mom's accusations about neglecting family duties. When the offer came, I nearly dropped my phone. $86,000 base salary, $10,000 signing bonus, and a benefits package that seemed too good to be true. The catch? The position was in Boston, over 2,000 miles from our Arizona home. For 24 glorious hours, I let myself celebrate, splurging on an expensive drafting pencil I'd been eyeing for months. It felt like validation for every sacrifice, every late night, every moment I'd chosen work over sleep. Reality crashed back when I had to tell Mom. I strategically picked a time when Sophie was out, hoping to avoid her dramatic input. Finding Mom at the kitchen table paying bills, I tried keeping my voice steady. "Hey Mom, got some news to share. Can we talk?" She barely glanced up from her laptop. "Make it quick. These bills won't pay themselves." Taking a deep breath, I shared my news. For a fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of what looked like pride in her eyes. Then came the inevitable question, "Where's the position?" "Boston." Her expression shifted instantly from interest to anger. "Boston? As in Massachusetts?" "Absolutely not." I'd anticipated resistance, but not an immediate wall. "Mom, this is huge. The salary's incredible, especially for a new graduate. I can send money home to help." "Alex, you clearly don't understand our situation." She cut me off. "We're about to lose the house." That stopped me cold. "What? How?" "Dad's life insurance covered most of the mortgage." She shut her laptop, fixing me with a look of martyred patience that made my stomach turn. "The insurance money's gone. We're 3 months behind on payments. The bank sent a foreclosure notice last week." My mind reeled. "Why didn't you tell me?" I didn't want to worry you while you were finishing school." She sighed, her voice taking on that guilt-inducing tone I'd grown to despise. "But without your income, we'll end up homeless. Your father would never have abandoned his family like this." And there it was, the dad card, her trump play whenever logic failed her. "Dad would have wanted me to take this opportunity," I countered, struggling to keep my voice level. "He always said I should aim for top firms. That was before he died and left me handling everything alone." She snapped. "Things have changed. We need you here. I need you here. Nathan needs you here." Speaking of Nathan, I noticed him hovering in the hallway, his face a mixture of confusion and disappointment that broke my heart. "What about Sophie?" I asked. "She's taking a semester off. Can't she get a job?" Mom's expression hardened. "Your sister is dealing with severe anxiety. Her therapist thinks working would be detrimental to her recovery." I bit back my response about Sophie's anxiety never interfering with her partying or shopping sprees. Instead, I asked to see the foreclosure notice. Mom's reaction spoke volumes. She got flustered, defensive. "I don't have to show you our financial paperwork. I'm still the parent here." "Mom, you're asking me to give up a career-defining opportunity. I think I deserve to understand exactly what's happening." She gathered her things, her movements sharp with anger. "I don't need you questioning me like I'm lying. Either you're part of this family, or you're not. If you go to Boston, don't expect to be welcome back here." She stormed off, leaving me standing there trying to process her ultimatum. Nathan tugged at my sleeve. "Are you really moving to Boston?" I ruffled his hair, fighting back emotions. "I don't know, buddy. It's complicated. I heard Mom talking to Sophie yesterday," he whispered, glancing around conspiratorially. "They were laughing about some expensive shoes Sophie bought. That didn't sound like a family facing imminent homelessness." As I stood there, the weight of the decision pressing down on me, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't adding up. The job offer papers on my desk seemed to mock me. 5 days to accept or decline. 5 days to choose between my dream career and my family's demands. 5 days that would change everything. The next morning brought suffocating tension. Mom orchestrated an elaborate show of ignoring me while preparing breakfast for Sophie and Nathan, though her pointed sighs and dramatic movements screamed louder than words. I caught Nathan's eye across the table. His slight shrug carried years of understanding about our family's dysfunction. With a rare day off from my drafting job, I seized the opportunity when Mom took Sophie shopping. Yes, shopping, despite our supposed impending homelessness. Once Nathan headed to his friend's house, I found myself standing before the filing cabinet in Dad's old office, heart pounding. The cabinet wasn't even locked, either from Mom's carelessness or her certainty I'd never dare look inside. What I discovered made my hands shake. First, there was no foreclosure notice. None. In fact, the mortgage statements showed we were 3 months ahead on payments, exactly as Dad had planned with his life insurance. But that was just the beginning. Credit card statements spilled out like accusations. 3 different cards maxed out, drowning in charges for Sophie's clothes, makeup, electronics, and even a weekend trip to Vegas that Mom had dubbed a mental health retreat. The total made me sick, over $155,000 in debt. Then came the real gut punch. Bank statements revealed regular $2,000 monthly withdrawals from an unfamiliar account, each marked e-college fund. But Sophie wasn't even in college anymore. She dropped out after 1 semester. I photographed everything with trembling hands, careful to return each document exactly as I'd found it. Dad's old laptop called to me next. Mom had claimed looking at his things was too painful, so I'd stored it in my closet. 4 attempts at his password later, I was in, and my father's meticulous nature revealed itself through carefully organized spreadsheets. A folder labeled Kids Future contained documents for 3 separate accounts. Mine, started at birth, built to $45,000. Sophie's, also from birth, reaching $42,000. And Nathan's, the youngest, at $25,000. Dad had protected these accounts, requiring his approval or documented educational expenses for withdrawals until we turned 25. Yet my account now showed just $837, and Sophie's had dwindled to $124. Only Nathan's remained untouched, likely because he was too young for any educational expenses. Over $85,000 shad vanished, money I'd never seen a penny of, as my $30,000 in student loans could attest. Digging deeper into Dad's emails, I discovered exchanges with his financial advisor, confirming these accounts were legally protected from Mom's access without proper documentation. Then I found something that shattered my understanding of my parents' marriage: correspondence with a lawyer from 3 years ago. Dad had been documenting Mom's spending habits and enabling of Sophie's expensive tastes, considering separating their finances or even divorce if Mom refused counseling. The final email to the lawyer, dated just 18 days before his death, hit like a physical blow. I've secured the children's accounts and am ready to move forward with the plan we discussed. I'll tell Sarah after Alex's graduation next month. It's time. He never got the chance. The accident happened before he could confront her. As I sat surrounded by evidence of years of deception, my phone rang. Uncle Mark, Dad's brother, was calling back about my earlier message. His voice, so similar to Dad's, broke something inside me. I told him everything. The job offer, Mom's foreclosure claims, the drained accounts, Dad's emails, everything. The silence that followed felt endless. Finally, he spoke with quiet determination. I'm coming over. Don't tell your mom I called. I'll be there tomorrow morning. That night's dinner felt like sitting on a powder keg. Mom had abandoned her silent treatment in favor of theatrical martyrdom. I had to cancel Nathan's summer camp registration today, she announced to the table. We just can't afford extras right now. Nathan's face crumpled. He'd been talking about that science camp for months. My part-time job was supposed to cover it. I'd specifically earmarked those funds. Your contribution barely covers groceries, Mom dismissed when I brought this up, sighing heavily. With the foreclosure looming, we have to cut everything non-essential. I bit my tongue, nearly bloody, watching Sophie pick at her dinner in a brand new outfit, her hair freshly styled from an expensive salon. Apparently, non-essential had different meanings in our house. Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. Uncle Mark was about to blow this whole thing wide open, and for the first time since Dad died, I felt like justice was finally within reach. The doorbell's chime the next morning might as well have been a thunderclap. Uncle Mark stood on our doorstep, his stance eerily reminiscent of Dad's when he meant business. His eyes found Mom in her bathrobe, and without preamble, he declared we needed a family meeting. Now, fear flickered across Mom's face. Real fear, not her usual theatrical performance, as she followed us into the kitchen. The morning sun streamed through the windows, harsh and unforgiving, as if nature itself wanted to illuminate the truth. Sophie stumbled in, clearly annoyed at being woken before noon on a Saturday. Nathan slid quietly into the chair beside me, his presence steady and grounding. What's this about? Mom's attempt at casual inquiry was betrayed by the slight tremor in her voice. Uncle Mark pulled out his phone, his movements deliberate. I got a concerning call from Alex yesterday. He told me your claim about the house being in foreclosure. Mom shot me a look that could have stripped paint. Our financial situation is none of your business, Mark. Or Alex's, for that matter. See, that's where you're wrong. Uncle Mark's voice carried the same quiet authority Dad's had when he knew he held all the cards. When my brother died, I promised him I'd look out for his kids. I've been too hands-off, and that changes today. He placed his phone on the table, displaying the photos I'd taken. Want to explain why you're telling Alex you're about to lose the house when the mortgage is actually paid 3 months ahead? The color drained from Mom's face. You went through my personal papers. She hissed at me. Answer the question, Sarah. Uncle Mark cut in. Why are you lying about foreclosure to manipulate your son into giving up a career opportunity? Sophie jumped to Mom's defense predictably. Mom wouldn't lie about something like that. Alex is just trying to make excuses for abandoning his family. Emma, with all due respect, be quiet. Uncle Mark's tone left no room for argument. This is between your mother and me right now. Sophie's mouth fell open. No one had ever dismissed her so completely before. Mom's knuckles whitened around her coffee mug. Things are more complicated than they appear. Yes, the mortgage payments are current, but there are other debts you don't know about, like these. I pulled out my phone, displaying the credit card statements. 3 maxed out cards with charges for clothes, makeup, electronics, and a trip to Vegas. That doesn't look like essential spending to me. You had no right. Mom slammed her mug down, coffee sloshing onto the table. Mom, you told me we might end up homeless. My voice shook with suppressed anger. You used that to try to force me to turn down a job that could set up my entire career. I had every right to check if you were telling the truth. Nathan watched the exchange with wide eyes. I hated that he had to witness this, but maybe it was time he understood what was really happening in our family. What about the education accounts Dad set up for us? I pressed forward. The ones that had over $85,000 combined for me and Sophie? Mom flinched visibly. Those were for emergencies, she muttered. They were specifically for our education. The force of my own voice surprised me. I've got $30,000 in student loans, while apparent emergency money was being drained from accounts. Dad set up for my college. Uncle Mark took over, his voice steady. Alex showed me the withdrawal records. Regular $2,000 payments marked as e-college fund even during months Sophie wasn't enrolled in classes. Where did that money go, Sarah? Sophie shifted uncomfortably. Mom, what are they talking about? Mom's face transformed into a mask of desperate anger. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to be interrogated in my own home. Mark, you need to leave. Alex, go to your room. This conversation is over. It's not over, Uncle Mark said quietly. Not even close. I've already talked to the bank this morning. They confirmed someone used Mike's death certificate and forged documents to gain access to those accounts. That's fraud, Sarah. The kitchen fell silent as a tomb. Even Sophie seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation. You wouldn't, Mom whispered, eyes locked on Uncle Mark. I would, he replied evenly. Unless you start being honest right now. Where's the money, Sarah? Where's the life insurance payout that was meant for the kids? Where's the education fund money? Mom's tears started flowing, but they felt calculated. Another performance in her endless repertoire. Everything I did was for this family, she sobbed. After Mike died, I was alone with 3 kids to support. You have no idea how hard that's been. The truth was finally unraveling, thread by ugly thread, and there would be no knitting it back together. The morning light caught the tears on Mom's cheeks, but for the first time, I saw them for what they were, not signs of genuine grief, but weapons in her arsenal of manipulation. And looking around the kitchen table, I could see I wasn't the only one whose eyes had finally opened. So taking money from Dad's education accounts was for the family? I pressed, watching Mom's performance crumble, maxing out credit cards on Sophie's shopping sprees while telling me we're about to be homeless. That was for the family? Sophie looked like she'd been struck. Wait, you used my college fund to buy me stuff? Mom rounded on her with unexpected venom. Don't act like you didn't know where the money was coming from. All those designer clothes, the new iPhone every year, the spring break trip. Did you think I could afford that on my salary? I thought. Sophie's voice wavered, genuine shock replacing her usual dramatic flair. I thought Dad's insurance paid for everything. It did. Uncle Mark's voice cut through the tension. But not the way you think. He nodded to me. Alex, show them what else you found. I pulled up Dad's emails to his lawyer. With each word one read aloud, the kitchen felt smaller, more suffocating. Dad's concerns about Mom's spending habits, his worry about her influence on Sophie, his plans to protect our financial futures. It was all there, in black and white. He'd already moved most assets to secure accounts Mom couldn't access, planning to confront her right after my graduation. But the accident stole that chance. Mom's crying stopped abruptly, her face hardening into something ugly and unfamiliar. Your father was going to leave us, she spat. He was having an affair with some woman at work. I found emails. Uncle Mark's laugh held no humor. Nice try, Sarah. Mike confided everything in me. He wasn't having an affair. He was working extra shifts to pay off your secret credit cards, the ones you'd hidden from him for years. He was planning to separate your finances, not leave the family. The lie was so transparent that even Sophie looked skeptical. I want to see those emails, I challenged. If Dad was cheating, show me proof. I deleted them, Mom said quickly, too quickly. Uncle Mark shook his head. More lies. Nathan's small voice broke through the tension. Mom, did you take my camp money too? You said we couldn't afford it anymore. The hurt in his voice cut through the room like a knife. Jake's account is still intact, I assured him. Dad set it up so it couldn't be touched until you're older. Your camp money should be there. Looking at Nathan's disappointed face finally broke Mom. Fine. Yes, I took the money, she shouted, tears streaming down her face. Mike was going to ruin everything. He was going to expose me to the kids, make me look like the bad guy. Then he died and left me with all this responsibility. And yes, I used the insurance money and the college funds. Sophie needed things. I needed things. We deserved some comfort after losing him. The kitchen fell silent. Uncle Mark placed a firm hand on my shoulder. Pack your things, Alex. You're coming to stay with me while we figure out the Boston situation. For once, Mom didn't argue. She sat there, deflated, as if she'd finally run out of lies. Sophie looked lost, her carefully constructed world of privilege crumbling around her. As I stood to leave, Nathan grabbed my arm, whispering, "Can I come too?" That simple question nearly broke me. I looked at Uncle Mark, who gave a slight nod. Pack a bag for the weekend, buddy, I told Nathan. We'll sort things out. Before we left, Uncle Mark turned to Mom. The fraud with Mike's accounts is serious, Sarah. You need to come clean before things get worse. She didn't respond. 20 minutes later, Nathan and I were in Uncle Mark's truck, my drafting table, the one Dad gave me, the one Mom had threatened to sell, secured in the back. As we pulled away from the house, I felt like I could breathe properly for the first time in years. The morning sun caught the rearview mirror, and I glimpsed Sophie standing at the window, watching us leave. Her expression wasn't angry anymore, just lost and confused, like she was finally seeing our family clearly for the first time. The drive to Uncle Mark's was quiet, each of us processing the morning's revelations in our own way. Nathan fell asleep against my shoulder, exhausted from the emotional storm. I watched familiar landmarks slip past, the park where Dad taught me to ride a bike, the high school where he'd attended every one of my architecture presentations, the curve in the road where I forced that thought away. Uncle Mark's house smelled like sawdust and coffee, just like Dad's workshop used to. As we carried our bags inside, he squeezed my shoulder. Your father would be proud of you, Alex. Standing up for the truth, looking out for Nathan. That's exactly what he would have done. Those words unlocked something in my chest, and suddenly I was crying, really crying, for the first time since Dad died. Not the quiet tears I'd allowed myself at the funeral, but deep, racking sobs that came from somewhere ancient and wounded. Nathan hugged me from one side, Uncle Mark from the other, and we stood there in his entryway, 3 generations of broken hearts holding each other up. Later that night, after Nathan was asleep in the guest room, Uncle Mark and I sat on his back porch, looking at the stars. So, he said finally, about Boston. The future stretched out before me, full of possibilities and fears, but for the first time since Dad's death, I felt ready to face it. The truth had set us free, but freedom, I was learning, came with its own kind of pain. I took the job in Boston. After everything came to light about Mom's deception, staying felt like accepting a life sentence of manipulation. Uncle Mark helped set up temporary guardianship for Nathan. giving me time to establish myself in my new city. When we told Mom about the guardianship arrangement, she cycled through her entire emotional repertoire in minutes, crying, screaming, threatening legal action. Uncle Mark silenced her with one mention of the account fraud and potential criminal charges. My new life started in a tiny studio apartment that cost more than I thought possible. The only furniture I insisted on bringing was my drafting table, Dad's gift that had survived, Mom's threats to sell it. Those first few nights alone, I'd sit at that table until dawn, sketching buildings that would never exist, trying to quiet the voice in my head that wondered if I'd made the right choice. Then the manipulation campaign began. Not even 2 weeks after I moved, the texts and calls started flooding in. Mom pivoted from "you're dead to me" to "please come home. We need you" with dizzying speed. Every day brought a new emergency. Flooding basements with mysteriously unfindable shut-off valves. Sophie's broken down car preventing therapy appointments. Unexpectedly high electricity bills. Each crisis designed to remind me how they couldn't function without me. Sophie launched her own offensive. Her first call almost fooled me. Tears about not realizing how much I did around the house, how she'd taken me for granted. It seemed genuine until she slipped in. "So when are you coming back this weekend? Mom says you can have your old room back." When I explained this was a permanent move, a career opportunity, not a temporary rebellion, she reverted to form, screaming about family abandonment and how I was just like Dad. Yesterday, Mom played her most desperate card. She actually tracked down my firm's number and told my boss I needed to be released from my contract due to a family medical emergency. Thank God for Lisa, my supervisor, who called me into her office to explain what happened and ask if I was okay. I had to tell her the whole humiliating story. Instead of judgment, she shared her own experience with maternal manipulation. "Stand your ground," she advised. "Success is the best revenge." Uncle Mark says Mom and Sophie drive by his house at night, probably hoping to catch Nathan outside. He's documenting everything for next month's custody hearing. Nathan's thriving in his care, sleeping better, grades improving, involved in a robotics club he loves. We video chat every night, and he's visiting Boston during his school break next month. Sometimes I wake up drowning in guilt, wondering if I've made the right choice. But then I'll get another manipulative text or be assigned an exciting new project at work, and I remember why I left. The firm has me working on designs that challenge everything I thought I knew about architecture. Last week, Lisa trusted me with a concept for a sustainable urban housing project. As I worked late into the night, I found myself talking to Dad the way I used to. "You'd love this, wouldn't you? Using design to make people's lives better." I swear I could hear his laugh, feel his hand on my shoulder. Mom's latest strategy is telling relatives I abandoned the family in their time of need. The story changes depending on her audience. Sometimes I'm an ungrateful son who chose money over family. Other times I'm being manipulated by Uncle Mark, who always resented her. The truth is simpler and more complicated. I chose survival. I chose the future Dad wanted for me. I chose to break a cycle of manipulation before it could claim another generation. Sophie sent me a text last night. I deleted those shopping posts from social media. "Hope you're happy now that everyone knows what a terrible person Mom is." I started to type a dozen different responses, but finally settled on, "I hope someday you understand." This was never about making Mom look terrible. It was about stopping the lies from destroying us all. She didn't respond, but the message showed as read. Next week is Nathan's custody hearing. Uncle Mark's lawyer says we have a strong case, given the financial fraud evidence and Mom's increasingly erratic behavior. Nathan asked if he could bring his robotics project to show the judge, so they can see I'm doing okay. He explained that I'm better now, out of the mouths of babes, as they say. I don't know if Mom and Sophie miss me or just miss having someone to manipulate. I don't know if they'll ever understand that love shouldn't come with strings attached. But I do know this, somewhere between that kitchen confrontation and my first Boston sunrise, I stopped being the person they could guilt into compliance. Dad's death shattered our family, but maybe that breaking was necessary. Sometimes things need to break completely before they can be rebuilt stronger. Tonight, I'm sitting at my drafting table, watching the city lights flicker like stars. My latest project plans are spread out before me, and Nathan's latest robotics competition photo is pinned to my bulletin board. Uncle Mark texted that he's enrolling Nathan in that science camp, Mom claimed we couldn't afford. Life isn't perfect, but it's honest now. And in that honesty, I found something that feels a lot like peace. Dad always said the best buildings start with a solid foundation. I'm finally building mine, one truth at a time. Story 2. This tale is named. For 3 years, I sent my parents $2,000 a month, yet they threw me out when I visited for Christmas. I therefore exacted my retribution. Hello, everyone. Prior to starting today's video, I need your assistance. One of the greatest ways you can help us out is to subscribe, since we've observed the channel is losing some of its popularity. It's simple, free, and helps us continue to provide you with amazing content. Your assistance is much appreciated. Together, let's continue to build this channel. Many thanks. Let's begin the video now. I never imagined that I would be doing this at 2 in the morning, man. I need to get this off my chest after the shit show that happened over Christmas, but I'm sitting at my home office. I've been reading other people's experiences on this sub for months, thinking, damn, at least my family isn't that bad. As it happens, I was mistaken. For reference, I'm 34 years old and have worked my way up the medical equipment sales ladder for the past 8 years. Those insane, costly devices and implants that keep people alive in hospitals, you know. My universe is like that. Furthermore, contrary to what my parents seem to believe, it wasn't given to me on a silver platter. I lived out of my 2008 Honda Civic during my first year of employment. Not a joke. In your early days, commission-only sales are cruel. Imagine sleeping in a Planet Fitness parking lot and taking a shower at the gym while attempting to persuade doctors to entrust you with their patients' lives. However, that's what it takes to get started in the field. My folks said I was crazy for quitting my steady office job. I was progressively dying to pursue this boring AF data entry job. Why are you unable to be content with a typical job? Was, at the time, their favorite cue. However, I worked hard. For example, get up at 4:30 a.m., get to the gym at 5 o'clock. Because in this field, it's important to seem professional. By 7 o'clock, we're on the road. They typically wait till late to conclude with surgeons. I would occasionally be in the OR till 9 p.m., observing processes to have a better understanding of the equipment. It was a terrible first year. However, it was worthwhile. Hit the top sales list in my area. It's been 3 years now, earning a healthy 6 figures. I'm not attempting to brag, believe me. This is important to the plot. I started with absolutely nothing. I now have my own place. A nice 3-bedroom home in a desirable area. Not really opulent, but it belongs to me. Yes, I occasionally date, but I'm still single. Last year, a significant relationship came to an end. She urged me to take more time off and calm down. Like, you don't stay at the top of this industry like that. That grind mindset was never comprehended by my parents. For 25 years, they operated their antique restoration company in the same manner. Never attempted to enlarge. Never took chances. Speaking about their company, this whole thing began there. When COVID-19 struck, everything went horribly wrong. Prior to it, their store was actually rather prosperous. They had a good reputation in our area, repaired antique furniture, and completed special work for some affluent clientele. However, their regular clients vanished overnight as everything shut down and orders dried up. Unexpectedly, they find themselves sitting on a warehouse full of partially completed items and unpaid invoices after new projects were canceled. That was when it began. The phone calls. The tidbits of information about their hardships and the memories of how they had always supported me. Indeed, they had obstructed their path, provide a roof for me, enrolled me in respectable schools, in a decent district, but public, never missed a birthday. I was therefore unable to refuse their request for assistance, began sending them $2,000 a month. Compared to some of the things I've read on this site, it doesn't seem like much, but figure it out. It comes to $24,000 annually, $72,000 spread out over 3 years. That money might have been used to purchase a Tesla. Depreciation is a bitch, so I wouldn't, but you get the idea. It felt fantastic at first, as if I was finally making amends for everything. At first, they were really appreciative. On the phone, Mom used to weep. Dad would express his pride to me, but these things happen, you know. Over time, the appreciation evolved into anticipation. The expressions of gratitude grew shorter. More attention was paid to what they required next in the calls. The thing that really bothers me is that my brother, Jake, a 31-year-old man, has a gaming setup and a streaming profession in their basement. That's roughly enough to purchase a pizza each month. But since I sometimes say that $2,000 is a lot to send each month, I'm somehow the villain. He's sharing images of his setup and energy drinks on Instagram as he chronicles his hustle and grind. That one is a real hard worker. When we were youngsters, I used to stand up for him. He was my younger brother. He was teased in high school for being the strange kid who was too interested in anime. Since school isn't for everyone, I supported him when he left community college. I encouraged him and advised our parents to allow him some time to work things out. 10 years have passed, and the only thing he's learned is how to mooch more successfully. In hindsight, I can see how everything culminated in this Christmas. There were clues in the way Mom would bring up Jake's professional aspirations, how Dad began discussing family heritage and mutual support. Some individuals have it easier than others, according to the passive-aggressive texts. I simply didn't anticipate it blowing up the way it did. I never thought I'd be sitting here at 2 in the morning, typing this, trying to figure out how I handed them $72,000 and somehow became the antagonist in their tale. And that's only the preparation. Believe me, it becomes so bad that spending $2,000 began to seem more like feeding a black hole than supporting family. Are you familiar with the sensation of having too much weight on the bar when working out? You feel something is about to give, yet your form is hurting, even if you can still lift it. This felt that way each and every month. At 4:30 a.m., I usually start my day. I get up early, work out, and hit goals by 5 o'clock. In this field, you have to remain sharp. When you appear to be in control, surgeons will respect you more. Under those flickering fluorescent lights, I'm generally the first one there, going through my routine. By 7, I've bathed, dressed, and am on the road, while the morning staff is still being set up. 3 large hospitals and perhaps a dozen minor surgical centers are included in my jurisdiction. This is what people don't understand about the sales of medical devices. It goes beyond simply chatting with physicians. Because someone's life is actually on the line, I'm in an operating room, observing procedures and ensuring my equipment is running flawlessly. One mistake and one moment of inattention. I could lose all I've worked so hard to get. It's crazy how much pressure there is. Therefore, it's possible that I become a little resentful while I'm in an operating room. While Jake is most likely still in his pajamas streaming Fortnite to his 12 followers, I'm watching a complicated spine operation for 6 hours straight, knowing that $2 of my profit is going directly to my parents. Not a joke. Looked at his Twitch statistics. The most views he ever received out of curiosity was 15. 3 of those were probably our cousins. The weekly family calls turned into this strange battle of the mind. Like clockwork, Mom would begin with a routine every Sunday at 7 p.m. How is work going? Am I eating correctly? Have I met anyone? Good. However, this undercurrent, this subtle guilt trip became less subtle each week. Ryan, you put in a lot of work. We're quite pleased with you. Interpretation. You earn a nice living. Why don't you provide additional information? With his channel, Jake has been making significant strides. Interpretation. Your sibling needs better gear. Hint, hint. We're handling the translation, but the home needs some repairs. We anticipate receiving the check on time next month. Jake's voice would rise from the background in the meanwhile. Watch my most recent stream, dude. Set a new subscription record. That's a great story, my friend. Going from 8 to 9 subscribers is probably not going to blow Twitch away. What truly irritates me is that as I'm figuring out how many surgeries I need to schedule to keep up with sending them money, I'd see his Amazon deliveries piled up on their doorstep when I visited. These packages included LED lights for his studio and a crazy $300 microphone setup for his gaming chair. During our weekly BJ session, I made an attempt to discuss it with my closest buddy, Mike. 2 years ago, I began attending lessons. Greatest way to relieve tension. He simply stared at me as if I were crazy. At age 31, you're essentially giving your sibling his allowance, dude. It's screwed up. The worst part, though, is that I began to notice strange things on social media. Jake would make lengthy tirades about people who were phony successful and how some people peaked in high school. Since I was the wrestling team's captain, while he was attempting to launch an anime club, I'm very certain those were directed at me. The worst thing? These posts would get likes and comments from Mom. It seems like everyone follows their own way, my dear. I mean, are you serious? You're cashing my checks and supporting this garbage. Then Jake began this big Instagram thing about being an entrepreneurial hip coach. He put a photo of himself in front of the Audi I had purchased and captioned it with some bullshit about how to create an empire and attract success. Before my customer saw it, I had to instruct him to remove it. If a physician saw it, would he assume I was connected to his clown show? Every time I clicked submit on my banking app, I began to dread those monthly transactions. As I watched Jake write about his newest investments in his streaming business, I would get a knot in my stomach. Start putting things off, put off purchasing new outfits for work, continue to drive on tires that needed to be replaced, and forego a dentist cleaning. One of our Sunday calls was the true stomach blow. Jake adds to Mom's tirade about how difficult things were. Yes, but I'm here for Mom and Dad at least, not only tossing them money from afar. How daring of this guy to criticize me while sitting in their basement and doing nothing constructive. I'm now wrapping up a challenging knee replacement case, which is approximately a week before Christmas. Special thanks to Dr. Anderson. In the OR, this guy is a beast. As soon as my phone explodes. Within 20 minutes, Mom missed 3 calls. For comparison, my mother often sends one text and waits for a response. Multiple calls indicate that she is either preparing to engage in some major manipulation or that something is seriously amiss. Still wearing my surgical scrubs, I leave the operating room and give her a call back. That's the tone of her voice. You know, the tone that makes your stomach turn before she even gets to the point. That sickly, sweet, guilt-dripping tone. I just called you about Christmas dinner. Ryan, my love. It's as if she's calling me to court. I'll now show you our typical family Christmas photo, which is one of those iconic films. After that, deduct all the happiness, add a good amount of passive-aggressive remarks, and increase the tension by around 1,000. My parents' house is celebrating Christmas. However, something felt different this year. Ryan, remember the value of family. Each of us has made many sacrifices. It was there, the S word in my household, code for sacrifice. You had best have your wallet open when you arrive. Jake is playing in the background, though. Most likely he was broadcasting his voice, acting like an enthusiastic YouTuber. Remember to hit the like button, family. I'm still perspiring after being in the operating room as I stand in the hospital corridor. I listened to my mother go on about family customs for 4 hours. In the background, my 31-year-old brother is actually shouting about Twitch subscriptions. I nearly burst out laughing at the ridiculous contrast. But I made a mistake here. This year I made the decision to go big, like very large. I recently concluded a huge contract with a brand new orthopedic practice. Although commission hadn't arrived yet, I was feeling giving and felt it will happen soon. I spent $1,800 in the 665-inch OLED TV from Best Buy, premium blacks with a refresh rate of 120 Hz, the type of television that most people watch and consider. For next year, the Best Buy salesman, Kevin. This cool guy truly understands his technology, tried to get me to go to the 55-inch. He felt it was better value for the money. But no, the big shot had to be me. Something has to be proven. In hindsight, Kevin was attempting to protect me from myself. If you're reading this, Kevin, you are correct, my friend. Jakes is flooding our family group chat with links to his most recent broadcasts while I'm choosing the TV. He has over 100 followers. Storyteller. He had not yet reached 100 followers. In response, Dad uses those generic dad emoticons that he believes give him a tech-savvy appearance. Mom is reacting to everything with heartfelt feelings. In the meantime, I'm spending over $2,000 on a television that I'll most likely use to view Jake streams in high definition. Dad had been acting strangely on our calls lately, which was the unusual part. He is often the talkative one, constantly eager to discuss sports or voice grievances about the neighbors. However, radio quiet recently. Like a statue that periodically grunts in agreement with Mom and Mom, he would just exist throughout these family calls. She got into the habit of concluding every chat with a mysterious remark about impending great changes or family gathering together. As subtle as a sledgehammer to the face, Mom is very subtle. I ought to have anticipated it. Every symptom was present. Jake abruptly began tidying up his streaming room. For the first time in likely years, Mom is asking very detailed questions regarding my commission structure and job routine. The odd quiet of Dad. It was similar, like yelling at the main character in a scary movie to stay out of the cellar. However, I was the idiot that downed those steps. The day prior to Christmas. Games don't take vacations, which is why I'm at the gym. And Jake sends me this text. Hey, dude. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. I have important news to share. It was the first direct text message he had sent me in months. It wasn't a plea to support the channel or a stream link. That ought to have been the last warning sign. But no, I'm deadlifting there. I wonder whether he's finally matured. Perhaps he has a legitimate job. Perhaps tomorrow won't be a total bust. I composed this lovely card about family, gratitude, and all that generic nonsense. I expressed my pride in them for overcoming the difficult circumstances following the closure of their firm. How glad I was to be able to assist. Very sentimental items that were most likely thrown out before the TV was even opened. There was that bone-chilling cold chill at the beginning of Christmas morning. I recall spending a solid 10 minutes sitting in my car outside of their house. Heat is on full blast, and the engine is going. Only observing my breath, fogging the panes. That $1,800 TV was taking up a lot of room, and the Audi leather seats felt chilly against my back. In order to see anything, I had to tilt my rearview mirror. I had already gone to the gym, even though it was only 11 a.m. gains from holidays are still gains. Prepared the week's meals. Because the corners continued shredding. Discipline doesn't take vacations, and wrap that fucking TV 3 times. Do you remember the part in war films where the soldier looks at a picture one final time before entering combat? I felt that way when I saw the $2,000 transfer I had made 2 days early as a Christmas surprise on my banking app. Transfers for 3 years. I never missed one. Never be late. We do these things for our family, don't we? I could tell something wasn't right as soon as I approached their door. You know how there's a certain fragrance about your childhood home? Like a combination of the fabric softener your mom has been using since the 1990s and whatever she makes. I was impacted hard by the stench. Something more, though, was in the air. Anxiety. The sort that tastes. With what I refer to as her estate agent, Mom opened the door. Grin. No warmth. All teeth. I got her this Christmas jumper last year, and she was wearing it. For the guilt points, most likely. She barely looked at me as she invited me in and then vanished into the kitchen, claiming to be monitoring the turkey. The living room's Christmas decor was reminiscent to those of Twitch streamers. It seems that Jake persuaded them to install RGB light strips around the ceiling. Mom, it's for the Christmas look. He could see his streaming setup through the basement door. There were more monitors, more lights, and what appeared to be a brand new gaming chair. It was interesting to observe the use of my support funds. Dad was lying in his chair, which he had owned since I was a high school student. He nodded at me in a bizarre way, as if he were recognizing a stranger on Christmas morning at a petrol station rather than his son. His eyes were fixed on his phone as a basketball game aired on the TV, most likely looking at Jake's most recent subscription count or something. In relation to Jake, my brother came around 15 minutes after I did, sporting what must have been a knockoff Supreme sweatshirt and holding his newest streaming gear, a professional camera setup that was certainly beyond of his price range, as he strutted up from his basement hideaway. Hey, how are you? Family. His voice, the one he uses in his streams, was a phony YouTuber. Most likely habit at this stage. As always, Big Bro looks professional. It was a jab at my attire. Just pants and a basic sweater, nothing extravagant. However, it seems that in Jake's universe, everything that isn't shown by anime characters is considered corporate. The handoff to the TV was really uncomfortable. Jake began describing how this would be ideal for his streaming area before I had even removed the wrapping paper. While Dad continued to stare at his phone, Mom interrupted with a hesitant, "Oh, but it should remain in the living room, honey." Cool. The $1,800 family TV alone is being used as a background on Twitch. Not a huge deal. The beginning of dinner resembled a hostage negotiation. Everyone is handing plates with fake grins and treading carefully. I was shoveling down Mom's dry turkey because I needed something to do except chat. The quiet was so heavy that it might be broken with the elegant set of knives I had given them for Christmas, which, incidentally, appeared to have been utilized. Then Jake revealed the secret. While your family is struggling, it must be good to have all that additional money. He didn't even glance up from his plate as he spoke, his mouth full of mashed potatoes. I swear the room's temperature fell 10 degrees before I could comprehend the words, which lingered in the air like smoke. Dad cleared his throat. When someone is ready to speak something they have practiced, you know the sound they make. That one, indeed. We must discuss the monthly support, son. I recall slowly setting down my fork. Like in those movies where you know that something bad is about to happen. Mom's hands, which she has had since I was a child, were twitching with her serviette. I intended to use Jake's knockoff Supreme sweatshirt to erase the smirk off his face. We believe it's time to change the quantity. Still avoiding eye contact, Dad went on. In light of the circumstances, we think $4,000 would be more suitable. $4,000. I nearly choked on my dinner, but I didn't. In my throat, the turkey felt like sandpaper all of a sudden. The simple maths was all I could think about. That's $48,000 more than some nurses earn annually. More than many folks earn. Jake's career requires some initial funding. Mom interjected, as though she were pleading with me to share the burden, rather than double my income. In the very competitive streaming market, having the right gear is crucial. I glanced at my dad's new wristwatch across the table. He got that when? Jake's fancy sweatshirt. That product isn't cheap, fake or not. At the RGB lit space that resembled a gaming cafe more than the house I grew up in. For 3 years, I supported myself by working additional cases, foregoing holidays, and delaying my own death. And it ended up like this. My beloved brother Jake made the decision to truly twist the knife at that point. Indeed, my friend, not everyone is cut out for a business position. Here, some of us are attempting to create something tangible. When your blood pressure truly starts to rise, do you ever experience this? Where everything becomes somewhat sharp and silent at the same time, and where you can hear your heartbeat in your ears. Yes, greetings from my Christmas. After that Christmas catastrophe, I just departed after telling them I would give it some thought. I was in a daze for the next several days. After a terrible breakup, do you know how it feels like nothing is real? Like that, except worse, because your own relatives just attempted to take advantage of you financially. I put myself into my profession and took on more cases. Special thanks to the ER doctors who genuinely value someone arriving at 3 in the morning for urgent operations and mostly resided at the gym. Speaking of the gym, that's where it all began to go apart. 3 days following Christmas, I'm in this fancy gym next to the hospital. It's one of those establishments that serves real towels and serves water in glass bottles. Before this position, I never would have imagined working in such a setting. Since many of the surgeons work out there, I defend the cost of membership. Additionally, connections are crucial in the medical device sales industry. Since everyone continues DMing me about my program, I'm now in the middle of my deadlift set 545 for reps. I see Mike Peterson when I look up, when I hear my name called. I went to high school with this man. Now, Mike works in real estate. Does our region have upscale properties? That's what we do. Uncomfortable. I'm sweating profusely, but I'm also trying to be pleasant. Talk that takes place at gyms. Then he says, "Hey, I saw your parents last week," which causes me to drop the barbell in the middle of the rep. They're considering several lovely vacation homes in Florida. Retirement in elegance must be lovely, isn't it? The boom of 545 pounds striking the platform attracted several stares, but I hardly noticed. Vacation homes. Florida. What? The real fuck? By vacation properties, do you mean? Trying to seem casual while my brain short-circuited, I managed to inquire. Bless his innocent heart, Mike simply keeps going. Yes, exactly. They are considering this pleasant neighborhood close to Naples. Very expensive thing. A few months ago, they made reference to selling their company for a substantial sum of money. A wise choice in this market. Mike immediately shifted the topic to asking about protein powder suggestions, but the damage was already done. I must have looked like I was having a stroke. After losing everything in the epidemic, my parents, whom I had been helping for 3 years, reportedly sold their company and were looking for vacation houses. Being able to research a network is one aspect of selling medical devices successfully. I took the course of action that any betrayed son with a large professional network would take. I started digging. My friend Tom, who works at the bank where my parents' business accounts are kept, was the first person I called. He owed me for paying for his buy in the previous game when we played poker together once a month. Hey guy, strange inquiry, but what became of that Oak Street antique repair company? Tom's answer was intriguing, really fascinating. Yes, it was sold in September. I heard that was a very decent deal. Why September? They were still accepting my $2,000 checks when they sold the company 3 months earlier in September. Sarah, who manages commercial properties in our region at the real estate agency, was the next person we spoke with. We had a brief but amicable relationship last year. Hey, remember that furniture repair company my dad owned? Do you know how much it sold for? She gave me a clue, but she was unable to provide me with specific numbers due to confidentiality issues. To put it mildly, they won't have to worry about bills for some time. But here's when it gets really fantastic. Do you recall Jake's streaming configuration? Those new flashy gadgets? That excellently made camera. I began reading his reviews on Amazon. He does in fact evaluate everything he purchases, as if he were a tech influencer. His purchases timestamps matched my monthly remittances exactly. My money wasn't being used to pay expenses. They were paying for Jake's lifestyle as an aspiring influencer. I went into full detective gear, creating a spreadsheet and retrieving past bank statements, SMS messages, and everything else. Yes, I'm the one who keeps track of when I gave money and when Jake unexpectedly acquired new streaming gear. It was almost humorous how clear the pattern was. However, it wasn't amusing at all. Do you recall Mom wearing her Christmas jumper? The one I bought her last year? I discovered that her Facebook marketplace had the exact same one for sale. 2 days after Christmas, it was posted. An explanation, brand new with tags, unwanted present. I sent them $2,000 a month for 3 years. The total is $72,000. That's more than a down payment on a good home. For comparison, I obviously needed to wake up and understand what was going on since the price of a Tesla Model 3 was equivalent to 36. Cups of coffee plus years worth of tuition at an in-state university. What were they going to do with it? Reportedly went house hunting in Florida and provided funding for Jake's pipe dreams. An old August email exchange between my parents and their business broker was the source of the actual stomach hit. The epidemic hadn't cost them everything. In fact, they had successfully shifted to internet sales, not because they were having trouble, but because they wanted to retire. The company sold. All of the depressing phone conversations, guilt trips, and accounts of financial hardship. It was all a screenplay, a protracted deception, written and played by my own family, with me as the unknowing ATM. Have you ever had a moment where you're so furious that everything makes perfect sense? Strangely serene, yet in a manner that makes me think I might actually turn over a table. That was me coming up to my folks' house at 8:06 p.m. on a Tuesday night, still wearing my suit from a day of surgical cases. In a complicated spinal fusion, I had watched a surgeon practically rebuild a patient's backbone over the day. It's funny how you get these small analogies from life, because that's precisely what I needed: a backbone. Their garage door was illuminated like a beacon by my Audi headlights. Was Dad's new vehicle a brand new BMW 3 Series that seemed to emerge from their precarious financial situation? Subtle men are promoting the idea of poverty. I still had my key. Ironic, considering that years earlier they had emotionally shut me out. The house was warm. The living room's TV is on. I had purchased a $1,800 old TV for them as a Christmas present. Now playing some Twitch stream. Specifically, Jake's stream, since it was, of course. Mom was browsing Zillow in her reading chair, most likely looking up real estate costs in Florida. Dad was using his phone to view Jake's broadcast while feigning to read the newspaper. And there was Jake himself, spread out on the couch like some wannabe tech tycoon, chatting to his dozen viewers on his new microphone about creating a genuine brand. The tableau of the family. Picture perfect. Until I dropped a heavy manila envelope on the coffee table. We must speak. In fact, Jake leaped. Mom's phone fell out of her grasp. Dad simply become extremely still, similar to prey. When they see a predator, animals act. They were aware. They were all fully aware of the contents of that envelope. We weren't expecting Ryan, honey, Mom began, but I interrupted her. Of course. I took out the first paper. What a hilarious story. At the gym, I ran into Mike Peterson. Do you recall Mike? An expert in real estate. He brought up an intriguing point on Florida vacation rentals. Mother's face lost its color. Dad became enthralled with his newspaper. However, that made me pause. Why would my suffering parents, who need $2,000 a month to exist, be looking for vacation homes? I therefore conducted some research. I began organizing documents such as Jake's Amazon purchase history, bank statements, dealing cards, and documents from a September business sale. Even uncovered your previous email threads with the business broker. Jake attempted to cut him off. You're making this strange, bro. I'm making this strange. The chuckle that came out of me didn't sound quite normal. You basically typed encourage R to boost monthly support on your content strategy board. Jake, I saw the Instagram post. Very professional, incidentally. Advertising that lifestyle of an influencer. Mom attempted damage control. We can explain, darling. Describe what? How you told me you were having trouble, yet managed to sell the company for a profit. How you funded Jake's midlife crisis with my money. Or perhaps explain this. I took a snapshot of her Facebook marketplace, advertising the Christmas jumper I had purchased for her, and printed it out. At the very least, don't sell my gifts until I'm gone. Mom. Dad eventually spoke out, his voice bearing the authoritative tone he had when we were youngsters. Listen to this now. No, you pay attention. It takes 3 years of repressed anger to make your voice heard. I spent 3 years mailing you $72,000. I postponed my own life, postponed purchasing a home, and skipped vacations. Additionally, you were lying to me the entire time. Jake made the mistake of smirking. Not our fault. You're stupid enough to do it. I moved in his direction. Only one. He must have learnt my movement from those BJJ classes, though, because he actually sank deeper into the couch. Funny how a basement-dwelling streamer loses his nerve when confronted by someone who doesn't just talk tough in a gaming chair. I've got an itemized list of everything you bought with my money. I proceeded to extract further documents. The streaming apparatus, Dad's BMW, the Florida property, and the viewings. Even found the receipt for Jake's fake Supreme merch. That's real, genuine brand building, dude. Mom was crying now. They were actual tears, not the manipulative ones I'd seen previously. In just 10 minutes, Dad appeared to have aged 10 years. Jake was attempting to hide into the couch cushions. This is what will take place. My voice was steady as I spoke. The monthly transfer ended today. My bank has already set up notifications for me. Any efforts to guilt trip me, manipulate me, or squeeze more money out of me will end in me putting every single piece of evidence I have online. Every receipt, every lie, every manipulation. I'm sure Jake's 12 followers would love to see how authentic his brand actually is. The quiet was overwhelming. Jake's stream chat had stopped talking as well, probably wondering why their favorite content provider was suddenly looking like he'd seen a ghost. Please, Ryan. Mom made one final attempt. We are related. No, I said, collecting my papers. This is not what family does. Family members don't deceive, control, or embezzle from one another. You're not my family. You're merely folks who regarded me as an ATM. I walked out, leaving them with their bogus Supreme apparel, their BMW payments, and their Florida dream houses. Jake's stream notification was the last sound I heard. Dank member 420 has unfollowed. Perfect fucking conclusion. The last update. 6 months have passed after the altercation, and I'll tell you how things transpired after I cut them off financially. First, Jake's streaming career crumbled. Turns out when you can't keep buying new equipment and paying for purchased followers, it's hard to sustain the idea of success. From his height of 15 subscribers, he now has a solid 3, the actual ones, not the bots. Pretty sure one of those is his alt account. Then news of their faltering company began to circulate across our neighborhood. Remember my friend Mike from the gym? Turns out real estate agents talk a lot. Soon everyone learned how they'd sold the firm for a profit while still extracting money from their kid. They must receive some odd glances at church. The dream house in Florida is no longer there. Their acquaintance, a realtor, is now my friend as well. It's funny how that operates. Informed me that they had to cancel all of the property tours. It seems that they underestimated the strength of their retirement savings after they stopped taking their Ryan supplement each month. The finest part, though, comes after. 3 weeks ago, I'm closing off a complicated case at the hospital. 12-hour operation. The sort that reminds you why you got into medical device sales in the first place. Saving lives, making a difference, all that lovely things. I check my work email thereafter, and there it is. A message from Mom sent to my business email because I'd banned her everywhere else. We must discuss the topic line. Urgent family issue. The email was a desperate masterpiece. It turns out that they used credit for more than just Jake's car. Additionally, they used credit cards to fund the purchase of new furnishings for their made-up Florida home, something that BMW's father was quite pleased of. Assuming that their personal ATM would continue to dispense cash, they had been living lavishly. They are currently drowning in debt. Actual debt? It wasn't the phony kind they claimed to have before Jake had to sell every component of his streaming setup on eBay. I looked at the listings. The rate at which technology depreciates is terrible. If it weren't so depressing, it would be amusing that he now works at GameStop. It seems that becoming a Twitch star is more glamorous than explaining to clients why they should purchase the extended warranty. Mom made a suggestion at the conclusion of her email. They would offer me a portion of their house if I agreed to temporarily assist them with their payments. They said they might lose the house, the one that's most likely already mortgaged to hell. Hard pass. I replied with a single line. New phone. Who? This small-minded? Perhaps. It's satisfactory. Absolutely. According to what I've heard, Jake is attempting to reinvent himself on TikTok as a financial counselor because it seems like he is suddenly interested in delivering financial advice. It was his first video. How to use family ties to increase money. It's almost remarkable how bold they are. Even now, Mom occasionally texts from new numbers. The last one stated that they are prepared to reestablish our friendship on other conditions. Indeed, they were forced to live within their means once their ATM was taken down. Difficult words. Those. The TV. I bought them for Christmas. Last week, they attempted to sell it on Facebook Marketplace. It was listed for $2,000 oboe, like new and little used, similar to our connection. They ended up with nothing because they attempted to extract more value from it than it was worth.